Matchmaking and osprezhenie in Ukrainian traditions. In Ukrainian wedding rituals, the matchmaker and the matchmaker played an important role in the preparation of the marriage. Who is the matchmaker? A matchmaker is a woman who helped organize weddings, assisted matchmakers in negotiations, and could mediate between two families. She was usually experienced in such matters, knew the traditions and could speak well. The matchmaker could be chosen from both the groom's side and the bride's side, or one joint matchmaker was invited to help with the arrangements. In some regions, the matchmaker was also engaged in tying the marriage. She brought a towel, handkerchief, or other wedding paraphernalia. What are reviews? Inspections are a rite when the groom's parents came to the bride's house to look at her household, living conditions, and even her hard work. It was a kind of exam for the girl. She had to show how well she knows how to run a household, sew, cook, and also demonstrate a chest with a dowry. In some villages, the viewings could take place in a more solemn way, when the bride, specially dressed, set the table, and her family received guests with respect and hospitality. If the inspections were successful and the groom's parents were satisfied, it was an additional step to matchmaking, and sometimes to engagement. If something was not liked, the matchmaking could be cancelled or postponed. Modern influence. Although today, the wedding ceremony as a separate ceremony has almost not survived, a similar practice is found when families get to know each other better before the engagement. Matchmakers also no longer play the same role, but wedding planners or even relatives can partially fulfill their function. It is interesting that in many modern weddings you can still hear traditional humorous sayings about the matchmaker, for example, "Svaho, let's share the towels," or "a wedding without a matchmaker is not a wedding." So even in the 21st century, these elements of ancient traditions find their place in celebrations. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Matchmaking and matchmaking in the Ukrainian tradition. Matchmaking is an important stage in the traditional Ukrainian wedding ceremony, when the groom's family officially asks for the bride's hand in marriage. Matchmakers and matchmakers played a key role in this process. What is matchmaking? Matchmaking is a kind of negotiation between two families, during which the fate of the future marriage was decided. It usually happened in the evening, most often on Thursday or Saturday, because it was believed that these days contribute to a happy marriage. The process looked like this. Choosing matchmakers. The groom and his parents chose respectable and eloquent men who knew how to speak well and joke. They were called matchmakers. Arriving at the bride's home, the matchmakers accompanied the groom to her home, usually with bread, vodka, and gifts. Talking in a symbolic form, proverbs and metaphors were often used. For example, matchmakers could say that they are looking for a lost sheep or buying a beautiful flower, alluding to the bride. The decision of the bride's parents. If the girl agreed, she tied towels on the hands of the matchmakers, which meant consent to the marriage. Refusal. If the bride's family was not interested in the marriage, they could jokingly serve a pumpkin, which was a symbol of refusal. This is where the expression "give the pumpkin" comes from, which means refusing love or a proposal. After a successful matchmaking, the families agreed on an engagement and a wedding date. Who is the matchmaker? A matchmaker is a woman who helped in matchmaking and subsequent wedding preparations. She could be mediator between families, helped in negotiations, resolved misunderstandings, the host of wedding ceremonies. In some regions, it was the matchmaker who performed the role of manager at the wedding. As a humorous figure at the wedding, she could entertain the guests, make toasts, and participate in comic rituals. In folk art, the matchmaker was often depicted as a lively, clever, and cheerful woman who knew all the tricks of a successful arrangement. It could be from both the groom's side and the bride's side. Matchmaking in modern times. Although traditional matchmaking is losing its original role, many families still adhere to elements of it today. For example, the groom comes to the bride's parents with gifts and officially asks for her hand in marriage. Arrange symbolic negotiations or humorous skits. Parents bless the young before the engagement. The matchmaker in the classical sense is no longer an obligatory figure, but her functions are often performed by the host of the wedding or humorous characters during the wedding scenario. So even in the 21st century, These ancient traditions remain part of Ukrainian culture, adding festivity and symbolism to wedding celebrations. Smiling face with smiling is yellow heart.